Welcome, Illumineers. It is time to take a rest from your quests and check in at the Lorekeeper's Inn. Now, here at the end, we like to encourage our guests to take advantage of our extensive DVD and VHS library. However, we can't spend all our budget on fancy pants theatrical releases. So instead, we've curated the next best things, which is the Disney direct-to-video prequel and sequels. So to make the most of our collection, I am doing the series Movie Night at the Inn, where each episode, myself and a guest will discuss one of the 29 prequel and sequels that never quite made it to theaters. We'll tell you the plot, discuss what we liked, discuss our concerns, and determine was it good, better, or worse than the original. And lastly, do we think there should be cards from this movie in Disney Lorcana? And then to close out, we'll put the movie back on the shelf on the tier ranking relative to its peers. All right, today we are diving into the 2004 prequel, Lion King 1.5, which is also referred to as Lion King 3 some places. But either way, I'm very excited because I've heard it's one of the more popular Disney prequel and sequels, and that is exciting because that means other people probably like it. And it's weird because it's not a prequel or a sequel. It takes place at the same time, so I'm calling it a Quel. So even more exciting than the fact that I like the movie is that today, someone is with me who I consider on the list of people who would be on the Mount Rushmore of Lorcana content creation. She is one half of the charming wife and husband team that has been providing insights and interviews covering Disney Lorcana since September of last year. She is the charming and effervescent Erin of the Illumiteers.
Hey, that was such a kind intro.
I love writing intros. I'm like, that's my favorite part of doing this is I always get to be like, this is a little thing about this person. So,
Oh my goodness. Well, that was just, I don't know if I can live up to that, but thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be at the inn and talking about one of my favorite Disney quills. I love that phrase. I'm going to use that now.
Mm-hmm. I know. I was like, should I call it concurrent quill? And like, my husband's just like, I don't know. I don't think there's a word for it. I was like, well, so
yeah. I know we're going to jump into it, but what is so interesting about this movie is it takes place at the same time.
Yeah.
So it isn't like your traditional sequel. There's a little bit of a prequel moment that happens.
It's all of it. Yeah, there's like a little bit of a prequel, a little bit of sequel, and Quill. I was caught off guard because I was telling you before we started recording that so far we've done Little Mermaid 2, which was C, and then Mulan 2, which was D.
Okay.
The lowest
I was going to ask you what had what you had ranked things. So that
only 2 so far.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, good to know for my own ranking, like, as I think about,
you can keep that in mind as we discuss, because the thought process is that it should be in comparison to its peers, because we can't rank it to, like, other movies.
The
That
original
wouldn't be fair.
would not be fair.
Yeah, these movies serve a different purpose, and I think it's for Saturday night movie family nights. I feel like that's what these movies were created for.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the good news. But right now, only 2. But we didn't put anything on F because that just seems like it has to be. It feels too soon.
Yeah. I think I have an idea of what could be an F, but we're not talking about that movie today, so I'm actually really glad about that.
I'm so scared. Like every movie, I'm like, ugh, because like I don't think I've seen any of them.
There's some DZs there.
I'm excited for the time travel Cinderella movie. I will say that that's one that I'm truly excited about.
Yeah, that one I actually don't mind. So
yeah,
there's
Well, you can always come back.
I'm like putting the cart before the horse. Like we're talking about a lot of this in the episode. So I'm like, let's just talk about all the good stuff now. No.
I know. Well, so like I mentioned, today is Lion King 1.5, which is not fun to say, but I think I'll commit to it because it's every time I typed it and said it, I'm like, this is fractions in a movie title. That's rough.
Right.
And I'll be honest. So I love facts, but I haven't so far the 2 movies we've done. No facts. There's just no facts. Like you Google it, like I don't know. This movie came out of the ether.
Right.
Who knows why it happened or how it happened. They're just like it happened. But this one, I have some fun facts. So that's the exciting news for you. Katie and Becky, they didn't get any facts. They just got into it.
Okay.
So I think we did an episode on Hakuna Lorcana. Me and Caleb covered Lion King. And so the first fact is, so Caleb said that it was based on Hamlet. Mm-hmm. And this movie is based on a play based on Hamlet. Did you know that? I didn't know that till last night.
I actually did this play in high school. I was a theater kid. And so that's one of the reasons I love the movie.
Okay. Well, because last night I was Googling while I was watching. I was like, Jeff, did you know this is based on like a 1966 play? So,
yeah. And I think it's such a fun like nod to the fact that Lion King's based on Hamlet, that this is based on.
It's so clever.
Do you want to say it?
Well, wait. Yeah, say what?
Oh, the name of the play.
Oh, yeah. You can do that because it's a long one and you practice.
It's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. So that play basically is there are two very minor characters in Hamlet. Their names are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They each have like one line in Hamlet, really,
Mhm.
but you can theoretically in a big stage production like see them in the background. So they're supposed to be these observers of the story of Hamlet. And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is a retelling of Hamlet from their perspective. And there's a lot of fourth wall breaks. There's like a lot of comedy. It is a dark comedy. So you get like the darkness of Hamlet, but it's really funny. And yeah,
I
so
love that so much because, yeah, I was a theater kid, but my high school, they were always like, we should just write our own play, which was always a very
oh,
strange idea to be like, these
yeah.
high schoolers write and direct. But that sounds better.
Mm.
So, yeah, I guess you knew that fun fact. And then you gave me a fun fact. So it's like like a pickleball where I got,
Yeah.
now, like you said, it's a comedy, dark comedy, which is
Mhm.
interesting because I think the movie also kind of like it's like they took Lion King and they like, you're seeing all the moments that are serious. And like when they did the stampede moment, I was like, oh my God, we're covering that moment. That movie moment is like devastating, but
Mhm.
they somehow made it funny. They did
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's like I mean, there is humor in Lion King, but they definitely made this more humorous. Sometimes I would say they maybe went a little bit overboard on the humor, but I'm also not, a 10-year-old anymore. So.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I was laughing at it and then I read a review that said it'd be perfect for toddlers. I was like, oh, well, I guess I don't
Ugh.
have a really refined palate, but I found it pretty funny. So,
Hey, I
um,
love me some French fries and chicken nuggets. So,
yeah,
sign me
you
up.
got to balance things out. That's
Right?
the real
Yeah.
part. Now there was a second inspiration, and I don't know, some people might be familiar with this. I was because my dad would watch it very late at night on Comedy Central. And that is a TV show called Mystery Science Theater 3000. Did you ever watch that?
Oh, I haven't. Well, I've seen like an episode or two, but Liam watches that.
Yeah.
And he's tried to show it to me, and I'm like, I don't
It's a
get
thing. It's
it.
like its own brand of humor. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of like, before YouTube, humor, you had to go find it. People had their own niches. And that was one that my dad loved, so I would watch it. And they said that Roger Allers, who actually co-wrote and co-directed The Lion King, that was his idea. He was like, we should do a little MS3K. So that's why in the movie, several times they'll kind of intersect with like you're breaking the fourth wall. I feel like it's even the fifth wall. We're going beyond
Yeah.
even further.
Yeah. We're like completely out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that his ideas.
Mm.
And while I was watching it, my husband was like, "This reminds me a little bit of Emperor's New Groove. Like it's the same kind of like very weird humor where it's just
Hmm.
like just bouncing around. You're just like, whoa, this is kind of offbeat humor." And
Hmm.
he wrote the movie that was the movie that turned into Emperor's New Groove, Kingdom of the Sun.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but that's not a comedy. So it's very confusing. So he wrote Emperor's New Groove not as a comedy, but he made Lion King a comedy. So I don't know. He's a man of multitudes.
I mean,
And
maybe he saw it worked on Emperor's New Groove and he's
yeah.
like, yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, because on the Kingdom of the Sun, apparently he was on that project, and then they said they wanted to make it funny, and he's like, "I'm leaving. I don't want it to be funny." But to be fair, Kingdom of the Sun, like you ever watch, I think the movie's called The Sweatbox. It's a documentary, and I mean, you have to like go to not the dark web. You just have to Google and feel not guilty watching it. But
Right.
it,
Like a
it
bootleg
yeah,
of
and
it. Yeah.
so the original movie looked cool, so it's kind of sad they didn't make it, but. Either way, he touched all of it, both Emperor's New Groove, King of the Sun, and Lion King 1.5,
One
and
and a
Lion
half.
King 1. The voice cast is largely the same, which is not always the case in some of these prequel and sequels.
Mm-hmm.
So Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella, I probably should look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's how you would say it.
I
Sabella.
think it is how you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, they came back, so obviously that's the most important part.
Which is so cool. And like they got Matthew Broderick back to do Simba. Like
Yeah,
you can tell they actually like invested in this movie. They didn't
yeah.
just like throw it to the B cast. They actually brought and like paid the salaries of like Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick to have them come back.
Yeah, that was like truly shocking. Like even like Nala and Rafiki. One thing I found that I didn't find when we were researching Lion King is Ed, Shenzi, and Bonsai are voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings, who voices Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, what is that man? What can he do?
Right? Well, and so it's interesting too. In this movie, I don't think you actually hear Scar say
No,
anything. You just see him, and I'm wondering if it's because, oh my gosh, my brain just went totally in a
Jeremy
maze.
Irons, right?
Yes. I'm wondering if it's because they couldn't get Jeremy Irons to come back, and so they were just like, well, then Scar can't have any lines.
Yeah, I think they did the same thing for James Earl Jones. Like both of them, they're just like,
Mm.
guess what? You two aren't talking in this movie, which I think was the right choice because those two
Yeah.
voices, I don't think you can.
You
I don't
can't like,
approximate.
right? Yeah. I don't
So
think that would turn out well.
now there were two new voices. So obviously young Simba, because Jonathan Taylor Thomas had aged. He cannot be a child forever. So that was new.
Sadly.
I know, right?
Such
Bring
a
back
cute kid.
JTT, the bowl cut that changed hearts.
Oh, so
Um,
cute.
And then the new voices. So there were two new characters, Uncle Max and Ma. So
So good.
Uncle Max is Jerry Stiller, which I found very funny because I was like,
Mhm.
well, but then did you recognize when Ma was talking? Her name's Julie Kavner. Did you like when you were hearing her talk be like, oh,
So I didn't, but it's because I didn't watch the show
Okay.
when I was younger. But halfway through the movie, Liam's like, wait a second, that's Marge Simpson. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh. And I had looked her up on like IMDb before the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw like the Simpsons like thing on her filmography. I didn't look really in depth. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, he was like, wait a second. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
And it's almost
So-
like Marge Simpson. I don't know if you said that, but yeah, it's Marge Simpson, like almost beat for beat, like just slightly different. I was like, wow, I didn't know she was allowed to do any other role other than Marge. I figured she was on salary on The Simpsons and that's all she needs to do, but they got her
Yeah.
for this movie.
Well, because they film a crazy amount of episodes like every year, and
Yeah.
especially back in the early 2000s when this came out. So
Yeah. So I was like shocked
That's
because I was like, I don't think I've ever heard, and I think I need to talk to Becky because Becky's like the voice actor. She had all these facts about voice actors. So I need to be like, what's going on? Does she do other
Yeah.
stuff? Because I don't think I've ever heard her voice outside of The Simpsons. Then my last two facts, well, it's not one, it's one fact, but it's that there's only two songs in this movie, and they kind of cheat because there's only two new songs, but they recycled a lot of songs, which normally would make me kind of go like, oh, you recycled it, but they did it in a great way where I was happy. I was like, oh, it's that song I love. But one of the two songs was actually written by Elton John and Tim Rice, which I found shocking that they're like, sure, I'll Lion King 1.5, I'm free.
sign me up. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is so crazy. I saw actually that in the notes you sent me before we sat down tonight, and I was like, no.
And it's kind
First
of
of all, I was like, no, there can only be two new songs. But yep, sure enough,
Yeah.
there are only two new songs. And then second, I was like, Elton John.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So
It's funny though, because after I learned that, I rewatched it. I pulled it back on Disney Plus and I watched the song and I was like, okay, it kind of sounds like I'm Still Standing. So I was like, okay, I feel Elton John in the song. But apparently it was a recycled song, so it's kind of weird. Like sometimes you can find these old soundtracks on like iTunes. Other times they're just gone. They've been disappeared from the internet. This is a case where I couldn't find Lion King 1.5, the soundtrack. Now I could find like the track listing and there was like 7 songs. And they did the same thing they did with Little Mermaid 2, where they had 2 original songs and then they're like, and then 5 covers. And that's what the album was. And I'm like, wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, because it's only 2 original songs. So it's
Yeah.
like, you kind of gotta. You can't release like an album with 2 songs on it.
Yeah, and it was back in the day. Kids don't know. For all the children that listen to my podcast, back in the day, a song was on a CD or it didn't exist, or you had to watch it or tape it on like a tape player. It was
Yeah,
complicated.
you had to have like your cassette player like right by the TV, and then when it's played, you had to hit like play and record at the same time.
Yeah, it was hard. We were listening to the radio, all sorts of things that kids
I
still
think
never
that's
know.
how I made my Hercules. Like when Hercules came out, I think that's how I got all the songs. Whenever I first got it on VHS.
The old-fashioned way. We had to farm them. So normally the bulk of the episode is we talk about the plot, but this one's kind of tricky because the plot is the plot of The Lion King, but just zoomed out from a different direction. But we can briefly kind of cover the gist of it. So the film starts with Timon, and I'll be honest, at this point I was a little bit like, uh-oh, because it was a lot of meerkats, a lot of silly meerkat songs, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for a whole movie of meerkat stuff.
But Dig a Tunnel, like, is unnecessarily good.
Yeah.
You have to. However, I will say I watched it like 15 minutes before we started recording tonight, and I was like, I turned to Liam and I said, this reminds me a little bit of the songs from Wish, which we just saw a couple weeks ago, and we're completely addicted to the soundtrack. But like all of the songs are like objectively not great songs. Like when you listen to the lyrics, they don't make sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dig a Tunnel. I've always loved Dig a Tunnel. It's like
It's fun
one
to
of the
say.
reasons I love this movie. But I listened specifically to lyrics. I'm like, this is just not great.
I know.
It's so good.
But I did listen to it again this morning, and I was like,
It's
and
catchy.
you can find it on iTunes. That was strange. I couldn't find That's All I Need on iTunes, but I could find Dig a Tunnel. It is on Lion King's Greatest Hits, which I was like, all right. I guess
As
there's
it
enough
should be.
songs. Yeah.
As it should be.
So yeah, we meet Timon, and guess what? He's a misfit, but we could have probably guessed that. So he's causing chaos. He's stressing out Uncle Max. We meet his mom, Marge Simpson. She's concerned. She's a good mom.
Adorable.
Yeah, and then we meet the hyenas. There's a chase scene. The hyenas are a problem. And essentially he leaves. He's like, I gotta strike it out on my own. And he runs into Rafiki. Which it struck me in this movie. I was like, is Rafiki technically just Yoda, but like in a different movie? But I guess the wise elder is kind of like a Disney movie thing. Like, I don't think anybody can say it's copying anyone, because that's like
That is true.
it's a storytelling trope.
But yeah, it does definitely. I mean, you got the staff like Yoda. You got a little bit of Yoda vibes going on.
Yeah, because
so.
he like pretends to be dumb, and then he's like, guess what? I'm gonna hit you with some really intense
Deep
knowledge.
things. Yeah. And the deep thing he hit him with is Hakuna Matata.
He does, and so that you're like, it feels
And-
like this movie's like a puzzle piece.
Look beyond what you see.
Yeah.
Which is a big like thing at the beginning of the film is Timon is trying to find something beyond what he sees.
Yeah, which is interesting because he takes it literally. So, and I think it's very funny that they made that joke. Like, you can't tell my son things. He takes it literally, which I always think is fun because I
He
sometimes
doesn't understand metaphors.
Yeah. So Timon goes out looking for something he's looking for. He wants to live by himself. I mean, he makes a whole song. That's the only other song is a song about how he just wants to take care of number one. But then he meets his number two, Pumbaa. And we don't get to see Pumbaa's family, which I was a little sad about. I was thinking about that today, that I'm like, we don't get Pumbaa's the family.
Backstory. Yeah, because he's just kind of at that point, he's been a little bit like dejected and he's by himself. And
yes.
Pumbaa's got a sad Pumbaa #Pumbaa origin story.
Yeah.
We need that.
I'm sure it's, honestly, I bet if I went, someone is probably going to like, oh no, it's in that episode of, because there's so much Lion King extended universe. So I mean, but I would like it. I would appreciate it. I like Pumbaa quite a bit. I always think it's funny when there's a character that no matter what they do, they make you giggle, and he's that character for me. They then go to the scene where baby Simba's being presented. So we're synced up. We're pretty much, it starts right where the Lion King's starting. We see baby Simba, and then we find out that the animals were bowing because of toots. I don't know the right word.
What are we allowed to say on a podcast?
Yeah, he cleared the savannah.
Yes.
So they all. So there's lots of in jokes like that.
Pass out in the back, and then they start bowing. And that's the thing that's like I feel like a little bit like that they leaned into a little bit too much. Like, okay, it's like after one time you're like, okay, we get it. But they just continue to have flatulation jokes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jokes.
Which I mean Pumbaa, that's people describe him. They're like,
yeah, that is true.
We don't know many things about Pumbaa. We know that is a fact, and they're like, we're gonna lean on that quite heavily. But Timon doesn't care. So I mean, that's important.
Which is great.
Timon's like, that's so cool. I wish I had that power. So then they proceed to go to this is the only negative thing. I wrote 2 negative things but I think it's a good thing because they really leaned into the bizarre biomes of the savannah in this movie.
Okay. I think that you're about to say the same thing that drives me crazy about this movie. Go ahead.
Well, I mean that they go straight from like the desert to a waterfall. The river, I don't know where it starts from, and it's a savannah, and then there's a 200-foot drop. And then that leads to a jungle, and there's a volcano.
So for me, what is crazy that drives me nuts is just like the timeline of the movie. So you have like baby Simba at the beginning, Circle of Life, Timon and Pumbaa like walk past Pride Rock. They find this little like tiny, I would guess like oasis. They sleep under a rock or something. And then it's like they wake up the next morning and I Just Can't Wait to Be King is happening. When very clearly in the Lion King, like Simba's a baby and goes from a baby to like an adolescent, but in this movie it's like it happens overnight.
creative liberty, maybe. Maybe they were
Yeah.
like, this they've already suspended the disbelief that, the fourth wall's been broken. We're in the fifth
Mhm.
wall. But yeah, you're right. They do go to sleep, and then the next day they're like, hey, what's that song? And it's I just can't wait to be
Yeah.
king. And then
Which I also love. I do about that scene though. I love that they like point out the awkwardness of a full blown dance number happening just like
yes,
randomly. It's part of that fourth wall break, and
yes,
I love that they're like, this is ridiculous. It's a full on musical number happening
yeah.
at 8 in
I
the
uh,
morning.
I did like also they run into Be Prepared, King Undisputed. I don't know what the song title is really now because I've thought about it too much from a Lorcana perspective, but whatever
Teeth
that.
and Ambitions.
Yeah,
King of Sea. Yeah. I think it is Be Prepared is the actual
yeah,
song.
but
But yeah.
man, that was so funny. Like they're in the volcano and that scene starts, and I'm like, okay, this is. So yeah, it's hard. It's a delicate line going too far and doing the right amount. And both those scenes, I was chuffed. So, and then we get to the stampede scene, which I was like, whoa. If I have to watch Simba see Mufasa's body from a third angle, I was like, or second angle, I was like, I cannot handle it. I've already put it in a childhood brain thing where I'm like, no, I
Mhm.
can't think about
I
how that
just,
felt.
yeah, have to ignore that that's a thing
Yeah,
that
but they didn't
happened.
show
Yeah.
that part. They didn't, thank goodness they had like a separate hijinks where the wildebeest, they did show that, but then like they go down a river that leads down a 100-foot cliff, which leads me to where is this in Africa? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. That's a complicated thing, but I think they lean into it. So Simba, at this point, timing also. So they fall over the river. Timon's like, I just want to give up. But then
Mhm.
they find a jungle that's perfect. And then they sing Hakuna Matata, or they do it in the other way. Either way, the song Hakuna Matata is born moments before they find Simba, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. That like right before they met Simba, they're like, guess what? We just became best friends. And we wrote a song that we are going to sing to you very shortly.
That
Um,
is true.
so they find baby Simba. Now this movie, they kind of make it seem like they adopt Simba, like they are paternal figures to Simba, which is very sweet.
It is. Well, and you have to think about it too, like, because I think they brush over in The Lion King, they brush over that part of Simba's life. And I think that is the part of this movie that makes it, I think, so special and unique, is it does really explore the relationship between Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba. And, Simba has just lost his father, being kind of ostracized from his pack, from his family. He has no one. He's a kid. So the natural conclusion would be Timon and Pumbaa become parental figures to him and take
Yeah,
care of him. And you really see that in the scene where Simba keeps coming to Timon at night and waking him up saying, I need a glass of water.
I
I need
know.
to go to the bathroom, which is something that I think parents can very much resonate with. And
Yeah,
it makes their relationship once Simba gets older just like that much richer and
yeah.
special.
And it's crazy because the original Lion King, I think when we talked about it, it's like a tight 90 minutes. I think it's like 85 minutes. Like that movie, they're like no wasted space. So I thought this movie was fun because it's like, what if somebody said, hey, you can make the movie an hour longer and put in all the fun stuff?
Mm.
So that was one thing I was like, okay, well, when we talk about prequels and sequels and quills, it's, does it enhance, supplement the original? And this one, it did. Because, yeah, I
Yep.
didn't think about that part of their life. And we get to see them eat different kinds of bugs. We get to see teenage Simba, which is something I don't know if I thought
Which
about.
is
Yeah.
the snail eating
Yeah.
contest between him and Timon is hilarious.
Yeah. And so they have more antics. They have a cuddle puddle every night, which I thought was adorable.
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't even know how to word it, but I'm like, I want that to be a location. The
The
Goodnight
cuddle
Jungle.
puddle.
Yeah. Um, and then they have Nala. Basically, they fast forward. They make a joke about the bridge, which I thought was kind of fun. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna age at crossing this bridge." And I was like, "This is very funny." And eventually Nala comes, and they do the "Can you feel the love" from their perspective, where they were trying to do some hijinks to break them up. They couldn't work because they're just two lions in love. We get to see the "You have forgotten me, remember who you are" moment from like away, and he's like, "Whoa, what a storm cloud!" So they go through all the beats of the movie, which I thought was very funny
Yeah.
that they didn't miss, I think, any beats of the movie.
No, even like Pumbaa running across the savannah like in slow motion like Simba does in The Lion King. It was just so
Yeah,
classic and great.
yeah. So then in this movie, we get to find that Timon, he's kind of like, I'm done. This is too stressful, and lions are scary. I feel very good here, but he has a change of heart, and they go and save Simba, and they definitely lean into the fact that like Simba's very lucky they were there because
Mhm.
they actually played a very heavy hand. Ma and Pa were there. We didn't know that. They were there the whole time that we watched Lion King 1. And you know how the movie ends.
Yeah.
Simba wins.
Mm.
Scar falls. He probably passes. I don't know. They don't. Disney
They
movies, it's
don't specific.
indeterminate.
It's like we'll specifically talk about Mufasa, but Scar, no, we can't.
Yeah, Scar. That's too
Villain.
much. Well, and it's funny because the movie we watched last week, Li Shang fell, and I was like, oh, so he's still alive. Because yeah, when someone falls, it's a 50-50 on what that
Yeah.
means. But in this case, he's retired. So or he is banished. So that is, yeah, then we learned that they all move, or all the meerkats move to the jungle oasis. And that's quite nice. And they have a reprise of all the songs, kind of. The whole time they have the music of the original just kind of like in the background. So you kind of like get really into the Lion King zone because
Yeah.
they really, the soundtrack carries a lot of the emotional lift.
Mhm.
And I think that's how it ends, right? Like, then they're like, hey.
What I do think is really funny, and one thing we haven't like totally talked about is along kind of that fourth wall break. You know, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, where there's like a fifth wall break, where
Yes.
there are parts of the movie where Timon and Pumbaa are sitting in a movie theater watching
Yeah.
the movie.
That's true. I didn't explicitly say that's what's from MST3K because
And
I'm just like, everybody knows what that is. But yeah.
what's so great is at the end of the movie, Ma comes into the movie theater. She's like, "Oh, you're watching the movie. Let's watch it again." And then you see this amazing, like, we finished the movie and Liam's like, "This needed to be the D100 thing," because you see all of these classic Disney characters funneling into this movie theater to watch this movie with Timon and Pumbaa. So you see Snow White and you see, you know, Mickey, and you even see characters from Tarzan.
Yeah,
And
Stitch is there. I was like,
Stitch is there.
You're
Yeah.
newborn.
And so there's just all of these like people or characters from across these Disney films like piling into this movie theater to rewatch Lion King 1.5. And I just loved that moment because it was, I feel like, one of the first times in a film, like in modern history, where you do see the collision of all of these Disney stories kind of coming together, and they're all in the same universe.
Yeah, even the Disney 100 thing where they met at the animation studio, I'm like,
that was just great.
It's too much. Like when he stopped and looked at Walt, I'm like, I know.
Right.
So that's the movie, and it's crazy because normally, so when we got done with Mulan 2, there's a moment where I say, so Katie, what moments did you like? And we both got very quiet because I think we knew that was going to be very hard. But this isn't hard. So for you specifically, what made you request this movie, and why is this one of your favorites?
I mean, I feel like I've talked about, sorry, I put the cart before the horse a little bit,
no.
But like, I watched this movie when I was younger. I think I was in high school or about to go into high school. I have memories of watching it when I was like really young, but I looked at when it was released and very clearly that didn't happen. And I was a theater kid. So like once I was in high school and realized the parallel between Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like I loved it even more. I love Dig a Tunnel. And yeah, it's just, I had it on VHS. I loved the movie as a kid. And when you told me I could watch basically any Disney like B movie or sequel, prequel, I was like, oh, well, I haven't watched I haven't watched Lion King.
Like, this is
I
Dig
haven't
a
watched
Tunnel.
Dig a Tunnel.
Dig a Tunnel with some other stuff. But
yeah, right, exactly. Like there's a movie after that or something. But I haven't watched that in like, 15, 20 years. Let's do that.
Yeah. And I was so delighted because I had heard, because did some like peripheral research of like, how many do I want to do? And this is one, technically, I think they released it internationally in theaters, but they didn't in the States. In the States, they're just like direct to video. They did some advertising. They did a Happy Meal toy.
Okay.
I think it was Happy Meal. Yes.
I mean, I'm glad
I know there's a time.
It's, yeah. And that's, I mean, we talked about this as well. Like they like really invested like in the world of Disney sequels, prequels, you sometimes feel like they were a little bit of either like merchandising or just like a little bit of a throwaway, but they really seem to invest in this movie from an animation style, from the voice actors, bringing back Elton John, like.
Yeah. And it's only 110 minutes, or maybe even like it's only 100 minutes. Either way, it's short.
Yeah.
but it's quality, which is not something you can say for all these movies. Sometimes you're like, oh,
Yeah.
because I mean, animation takes time and money, and I'm sure these movies are made saying, what if we made a movie with a little less time and a little less money? But yeah, for some reason, something happened, and they're like, no, make a good movie, and they did, and it worked, and I'm very excited because I don't think there's going to be many that are so satisfying. But I'm glad that I have this moment in the series to be like, oh, that was nice. That was,
There is hope.
yeah. And,
There's hope.
yeah. And
I think too, so a lot of these prequels and sequels were like honestly done by a different like animation studio, like
yeah,
under the Disney umbrella. And one thing I was trying to research leading up to this episode is like, what was this actually done by Disney Animation, or was this done by the other like studio under Disney umbrella? And I couldn't find that.
I think it was produced by, I think it's Disney Toons or something Toons.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, I did see it was produced by that. I feel bad because I'm sure I don't know like how it works in animation world. I'm assuming they're just as talented, but just lower staff or something like that.
Or like, hey, you have like 2 months to make this movie. Go.
Yes, yeah, like they're because I mean they said one of the things in my in the movie series I was previously doing is we found that some of the greatest movies were ones where nobody was watching, like Lilo and Stitch and Emperor's New Groove were movies where they're like, hey, go do it in Florida. And because they were in Florida, they got to do kind of what they wanted because they didn't have the execs always walking by. So it can be a good thing. It can be a good thing to have no one watching because then they can just be silly. But also sometimes you have a movie like Mulan 2 where an entire movie is about marriage. I feel like I'm really hung up on that. I edited that yesterday, man. So I keep thinking about it. It's one of those movies where like when you're at a store and you're just talking to like the clerk, you're like, have you seen Mulan 2? I really want to talk about that with somebody. Like I just will just talk about it to anyone because I'm still
I'll have
processing.
to watch it now so that I can talk to you about it.
Yeah. It's something. So I think you should because then that'll let you know kind of like where we can go. What the range is of Disney Toon Studios. It's funny because this was something that I found. So John Lasseter, once he became part of Disney Animation, he was like, we're done. We're not doing that anymore. But now Pixar does like a million sequels. So,
yeah.
But like, he's not there. So it's
recent
complicated.
History.
Yeah. So, but apparently Inside Out 2 is very good. So
I have a 10-month-old, so I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's not really the age where they're like, I want to be in a loud room where I can't make any sounds.
Yeah. It came out and Liam's like, what weekend are we going to go see it? I'm like, the weekend it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And it comes to us.
I did see some movie theaters will do showings where the lights are at half and they're just like, hey guys, this is for families, so no rules. And like, yeah, some movie theaters do that, and that sounds quite nice for families. Just be like, listen, we know what's going to happen, and we're all trusting each other to not get mad, and I think that's wonderful.
We're just going to embrace it.
So I do, there's a couple things. I don't want to be like, this is a perfect movie. I mentioned that, where in Africa is this, where the biomes are wild. Like this jungle is really close to a desolate savanna. And they live there during the time, like Nala finds this oasis and she's like, what? Because she's like looking for food because all the lions are dying. And I'm like,
right.
How do you guys not know about this? But maybe lions don't have maps. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are of finding things.
They don't have Google Maps on their iPhones. I mean, it was like 1996, so.
It's true. But, Timon had very little legs, and he got to there in like a half day. So it's not far. It's very close. I imagine on Pride Rock you could see it. So who knows?
Especially if you went up to that top peak,
Yeah. I don't know. That's scary. But the other part is that Timon and Pumbaa speak many times that they don't like predators. Predators scare them. They don't like them. However, they eat the entire cast of Bug's Life several times. So, like, I think from another perspective, Timon and Pumbaa are they're the peak apex predators of the jungle forest.
The jungle.
Yeah.
Is there needing to be like a Lion King 1.25 from the Bug story?
Yeah, it'd be like, it's a bug's life told from the perspective of the bugs on the floor of the jungle in the savannah.
It would be like a slasher movie.
I know, yeah, because I mean the snail scene is truly horrifying if you think about like Heimlich.
You're and like, the little snail at the end, who like when he realizes that he can get away. That is very true.
I know, but they do another reference. I don't think my husband had these because I was like, oh, it's like the Disney sing-alongs, and I'm like, how did you not have those videos? But they did like a reference to that. I
I
was like,
know. I loved it. And then Pumbaa ate the little bug.
oh,
Other
it's
fourth wall break.
so charming. There's so many moments where I'm like, this is very charming. They did it. They threaded the needle. So but that was my only complaint is like, let's not talk about not being predators when you were quite literally seeking bugs and eating them. And we have seen in other movies bugs have complex social hierarchies and dreams. So but that's Pixar, so it's not canon. So
Yeah,
who
I was
knows?
about to say that's the other studio.
Yeah, right. That's not canon in
I mean,
Lorcana. It's not canon in Lion King. Bugs are not an issue here. So that was. Did you have
Unless
any?
it's cricket in Mulan.
That's true. Yeah, they eat several crickeys, and they eat like a bucket of crickeys, and that would have been picked crickeys in Mulan too, and was one of my more favorite characters because he didn't do anything, and I was like,
Maybe
you're doing great. That was a good choice. Were there any things that stuck out? I know you mentioned, they took creative liberties with timing and locations.
The timeline was my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Similar to you with the locations. It's interesting because I could push the I believe button with the locations, but the timing drives me nuts. I'm like, he was just a baby 2 days ago.
I don't know lion science, so who knows?
Yeah, I was like telling Liam, I was like, he was a baby 2 days ago. So it's been like, at least like, I don't know, 4 months, 2 years. How long does it take for a lion to become a baby?
Yeah, at least when I'm researching these, I'm always Googling how long when I watch Little Mermaid 2, I'm like, how long do crabs live? Because I'm like, Sebastian, I don't know. But suspend that disbelief.
Things you do when you're an adult watching Disney movies.
Yeah, you're like, I gotta figure this out.
I don't know about this talking crab thing.
Yeah, the talking crab, not a problem. But the fact that he's still around, I'm like, well, is that possible? But it is. Some crabs live to be 100 years old. So,
oh, wow.
Who knows? Especially magical crabs. I don't know anything about that. So the big question, do you find this movie good, better, or that's not the right question. The big question is, do you find this better, worse, or kind of on the same level of quality
as Lion King?
Yeah.
Oh,
which is tough because that's like one of the better movies like ever. It's like a great movie, even as a movie, not just Disney. But
yeah, I would say that it is not as good as Lion King.
Yeah,
easily, but I would say that it is better than some like OG Disney movies. What do you call the movie that doesn't have a sequel? Like,
the primary source material.
There you go. It's better than some Disney primary source material.
Yeah,
and I think there.
It's true. Yeah, because there's lots of movies, and this one was one where I enjoyed it, and like
Chicken Run, better than Chicken Run.
I'll put that on my tier list. Be like, listen, Chicken Run got on here. We don't know how, but I think I would say it was nearly as satisfying. So I don't want to say it's worse because I would say like it served the purpose of a prequel or sequel. Quel. I think it met the goals. Like if they had a corporate scorecard, I think it met all the goals swimmingly.
Yeah.
On this one. So I was pretty impressed by that. So then that makes the next question easy. Was there anything in this movie where you're like, they gotta bring this into Lorcana. They haven't done this yet, and I need a card that covers it.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
I mean, I feel like the most obvious is we need a Ma and Uncle Max.
Yeah.
Like,
we need more meerkats. Because, then we can have a meerkat type. We have a hyena type, whereas a meerkat type.
That is true. And, I actually looked at Timon's card and it doesn't have a meerkat type on it. So
I know. So someone wasn't thinking about Lion King 1.5 on that start end. So.
Right, exactly. There are several, and by several I mean 3.
Yeah.
That we need. But yeah, so definitely Ma and Uncle Max. And then I actually wrote 2 other ideas down. So, per my favorite song, I feel like we need a card that's called Quick Before the Hyena Comes, which is a song card. And I think it should bounce chosen character back to your hand. Yeah. Like you're hiding from the hyenas.
That is quite fun.
And then also I feel like we need an action card that is Scurry, Sniff, Flinch. Yeah. Where you can choose one of the following for your next turn. Either turn a character or give a character ward, evasive, or resist 1 for a turn. So like ward for evasive for Scurry, ward for Sniff, resist 1 for Flinch.
I like that very much. And I thought those were cute because, yeah, we've all seen meerkats. They do those things.
Yeah.
So, I like yours because it's really calling out that we need a meerkat some type. And so
Oh, for sure.
hopefully that's coming. I'm assuming that's the next announcement we get tomorrow is it'll be, hey, meerkats, they're in.
They're coming.
Yeah, I said Mom Paw too, and I didn't think about it further than they just need their own card. They deserve it. They earned it. I feel bad because you're like, ugh, fart jokes, and I'm like, well, I well, I want an ability either as on a Pumbaa or as an action where it's clear the savannah, and it's kind of like that scene where once he flatulates, I don't think that's a verb, but once he does that, everyone exerts on both sides.
I like that.
I don't know
I
what
actually
that's.
do like that. I'm fine
Yeah.
with a strategically placed joke.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was like, okay, I got it. Like, let's find something
Yeah,
new.
I know. Well, and apparently I was like, we need more. So it's like more of that, please.
I do love like it playing off of the like bow at the
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
So, and then they could be all about sequencing because it makes your characters exert too. So it's like there's a downside. I don't know. I haven't thought it through. There are people who are paid to think this through. They can.
Would that be inkable or not? What do you think?
I don't know because I think there's benefits to having it be exerted because then you could play something rush. So it have to be non-inkable because it's pretty big deal that you've got this pig that can.
To exert everything like that would be. I don't know.
Because technically, be clear the savannah could be like a funny or be prepared, but I didn't go that direction. Like be prepared, but it's funny this time. But no, they can stay. They're just exerted.
Yeah, I like the exert everybody.
Yeah. So, and the last one is I just want Jungle Home card because it looks cozy and inviting, and I liked getting to see that childhood. I think that was something we talked about that. I was like, you know what? I didn't think about to see teenage Simba, but it obviously happened because they go across the bridge once and he's a teenager and then they move on.
That was when you sent me this question, it was tough for me to think about because so much of this movie is in The Lion King. So it was like, characters and everything like that. But I didn't even think about the Jungle Home from a location perspective. I did think about the meerkat tunnels.
Yeah.
As a possible location. Again, back to the meerkats.
I know. Well,
but I don't know really like what that would do.
Whenever I don't know, I'm like, it could be vanilla. I just want it. That's what like it's just there.
I like that answer. I should say that. I don't know. I just want it.
Yeah, I just want the art. And that's honestly fair. I think because in this game, sometimes the art is so good that I end up liking a card that I had no feelings about, but I'm like, ooh, I like looking at it. So sometimes I'm okay saying it's just I want that card to exist so I can have it.
Yep. I agree with you.
I think we're allowed to have that. So yeah, I think the last question is where does the movie go on this shelf? Now there's S tier through F. Like I said, Little Mermaid 2 is a C because it just seemed fine. Or no, it was B, I think. Oh my goodness. Either way, I should probably know that. But either way, we don't have. So S is like so good. A is very good. And then F is not good at all. And then you know how letters work between there.
Yeah.
So what does your gut tell you?
Wait,
on
remind
this?
me what comes after C.
There is a D. There's no E because there was an E temporarily, and I'm like, I cannot fathom what would go between a D and an
D
F.
and an F.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have a little bit of an alphabet sort of grading system.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
but with like
Got
the
it.
added one of S. Like this is the bar that all other movies.
Well,
would...
so it's tough for me because you've seen the other two and I haven't.
I know.
So my initial thoughts would be this is an A, or even if we're comparing it to its peers, an S.
I know. That's. I've been thinking about it a lot today, more than I think probably I should have. So I'm like, I'm in a meeting. I'm like, guys, I can't stop thinking about where this sits on the list.
1.5.
Yeah. What do you think about it? My boss is like, I don't think that's what we're talking about. But I think it's definitely an A. Like it's earned the spot as an A. But I feel like knowing that it checked every mark: quality, voice acting, story, didn't ruin the
song
original
by Elton John.
Yeah, if Elton John's touching it, that's
that's a letter grade on its own.
yeah. So I feel comfortable putting on an S. It's scary because we're so soon, but at the same time, I think when you know, you know. And this one, I don't. There's other movies on here like Pocahontas too, and anybody who's seen that movie knows that it's rough. So I feel confident.
I feel like it's like one of those, we're in this situation where, now granted, you can put as many in S as you want. Like if you keep getting things better, you could keep putting things in S. but it's like those like viral videos a little bit where they give you like you have to rank something like 1 to 10, but you don't know what else is on the list. So people are like, "Oh, I'm going to rank musicals
Yeah.
from 1 to 10, but I don't know what else is coming." And then you always end up with this amazing musical that you have to put at like number 8.
Yeah. Now, there's some I've never heard anyone mention in my life. So I'm like, either they're so good that nobody feels the need to talk about it. I don't know. We're going to find out. I'm very excited, but I think this one is our first certified S. I feel good. And so you did this. You brought this to me, and I'm so excited because I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if it's all a medium? It's so yeah.
Well, and you're like, it's a half, so it doesn't really make sense. So that probably got you skeptical to start.
Yeah, because where does that, and to be fair, that was a bold choice to make it a half, because I think that I didn't know what that meant. And because of it, it disarmed me. And then I was disarmed and then delighted. So it all worked out. If there's awards I think there were some awards that I saw that they got nominated for, and they might have won, not Oscars, but somebody who won an Oscar was on the project.
So yeah, Grammy, Oscar. Nathan Lane, I think's won an Emmy, not an Emmy and a Tony, maybe. So,
probably, he should have them all.
Cool things happening.
So yeah. Well, thank you for being a guest. I'm always grateful that I get to spend time with people that I look up to. And so that was very exciting to get to talk to you and get to hear your opinions on it and get to hear about cards that don't even exist yet, but now they probably will, because people are hearing what we want and they're going to do it.
Yeah. Speaking it into existence. I love it.
Exactly. And like I said, Liam's invited, so he can always come. Like I said, I associate him with Hercules, but I know he's not only Hercules. Just because he dressed up like Hercules once on the internet doesn't mean that's only he is now.
Well, I will definitely let him know the invitation is open, and it'll give us an excuse to watch another movie we haven't seen in forever. He'll probably do something like Stitch related, because he just loves Stitch.
Well, there's several. That was something crazy too. Is like there is Leroy in Stitch. Stitch 2, Stitch has a glitch. Okay, well, there's only 2, but that's still more than I thought. Or no, there's another one, Stitch the movie, which is different than the other 2. So there's 3 Stitches on the menu.
So many extra props.
I know, but Stitch was in this movie, so who knew? What a surprise. It's very rare that I watch a Disney movie and then Stitch appears. That's almost never happens.
And always a welcome edition.
Exactly. So once again, thank you. And before you say goodbye, where can people find and follow you and Liam?
Yeah, so you can check us out on our YouTube channel. We are the Illumiteers. We host a Monday night live show at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But we also cover all things Lorcana on our channel. And then you can hang out with us in our Discord or on Twitter. We are at Illumiteers on both of those places as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that is listening to this probably knows who you are, because you guys, you're cool people in the community, because you cover all parts of it. And that's something that was inspiring to me, is that, Lorcana, it's a game, but there's so many facets. People love Disney, people love the art, people love the music. So there's so much to talk about.
It's so great.
Definitely. If you're not following them, you got to right now. Aww. Do it before you go watch Lion King 1.5 and Mulan 2. So that's to people listening to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Priorities, for sure.
Yes. All right. And thank you to the listeners for joining me for another episode. As you know, there's always room for more in the end. So if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, please feel free to email me at contact@thelorekeepersin.com or reach me at Twitter or Instagram via the socials linked in the description. As always, thank you for hanging out with me today. We are happy to have you stop by the inn, wherever your quest may take you. And remember, if you don't know where to find us, just take the second start of the right exit and head straight on till morning.